Like this.
Erotomania, also known as de Clérambauld's syndrome, is a relatively uncommon paranoid condition that is characterized by an individual's delusions of another person being infatuated with them. It's listed in the DSM-5 as a subtype of delusional disorder. Commonly, the onset of erotomania is sudden and the course is chronic. This disorder is most often seen, though not exclusively, in female patients who are shy, dependent, and inexperienced. The object of the delusion is typically a male who is unattainable due to high social or financial status, marriage, or lack of interest. The object of obsession may also be imaginary, deceased, or someone that the patient has never met. Delusions of reference are common, as the erotomania individual often perceives that they are being sent messages from the secret admirer through innocuous events such as seeing license plates from specific regions. That is a Wikipedia summary of what erotomania is, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today because I've been on the other end of that, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, when did my experience with this start? I actually can't remember. It's been over 10 years since the first instance of this occurred. And what's actually interesting to me is more than one person has had this disorder that I have been on the receiving end of, which is really strange because, I mean, reading that, it says it's very rare. And I can think of at least three different people that I've received like emails and messages and all that kind of stuff from, who have had this like strange obsession, behavior towards me, which is a bit wild. So I don't even know how to start this. Like, how do I even begin to talk about this? Firstly, I don't think, like, reading a little bit about it, I don't feel like these people who have like had this disorder, I don't think they're bad people. I don't blame them or have any ill will towards them or feel like angry or anything like that towards them. It's just something that happens. This is like also I guess it's a side effect of being in the public eye. And it'll be interesting to see who else has kind of gone through this. I've never had a conversation with any of my peers or friends in the industry who have experienced this. The person who was the longest running person who's had this obsession with me it's been over 10 years, and they have actually gone online and messaged people that I've known or artists that I've worked with or that kind of thing. So there is that, but I don't know if anyone's been on the receiving end of actually being the person being harassed, I guess is the right word. So this started over 10 years ago. It kind of started via, I'm sure it was on social media, it might have been Facebook. So what I noticed back then was just a lot of probably inappropriate or kind of strange comments or stuff being left on posts on Facebook. This is probably the early 2010, so let's say 12 to 2013, maybe around that time. It might have been after that, let's say 2013, 2014. So Facebook was obviously kind of at an apex then, so a lot of people were using that. It was the most kind of like popular social media, I would guess, at the time. and I noticed certain comments being left and stuff like that on my Facebook account. So what I ended up doing was blocking this person and making sure that they couldn't interact with my Facebook page at the time. This was when we launched also Hanji Hello, like the clothing brand. And I've learned afterwards that this person had made a purchase when we were launching Hanji Hello, around like the early kind of time of when Hanji Hello was launched. They'd also like purchased like a t-shirt, I think it probably was at the time, because we launched with the t-shirts first. What ended up happening after that is, because if you've purchased a t-shirt, you'll have the corresponding email address with that account. And what happened was, this person, obviously they've been blocked on social media. They might have been blocked on Instagram. I'm sure I had Instagram at that time, so they might have been blocked off Instagram because I recognized the name of this person. So what would happen is they would make a new account and I would block that new account. Then they'd make another new account and I'd block that new account, because it's basically the same name, but they would add like a 2 or add like, you know, a year or just a variation of that same person's name, just with a number at the end or like an underscore or something. Anyway, I ended up like just constantly just seeing this name pop up wherever it was on social media, and I just ended up blocking it. And because of the purchase of the Hanji Hello t-shirt, she then had that email address as a corresponding email address. So then there would be paragraphs and paragraphs sent on this email address. Now the stuff that was sent was just rambling things that were like totally random, and it's like someone having it's kind of like a podcast. It's like someone having a one-sided conversation, but making certain assumptions. So on my social media, if you follow me on social media or you've seen, I used to more so like back then, less so now because I kind of took a step back from posting as much as I used to back then, just because stuff like this. But I would post quotes, or I would be writing a song and I would post like lyrics, and you know, some of my stuff is quite emotional, like there's a lot of sad songs, there's all that kind of stuff. And she would, everything I would post, similar to what I was reading about the summary, she would think it was about her, and she would send an email. So I might post a lyric about, you know, what's the lyric of that time? I think it was the Hello remix, where I said, how much do you really know about a person? How much do you really know about a person if the only side they show you is the one that isn't hurting? So imagine, I've just posted that because I think, okay, that's a nice little couplet that I've written, or that's a really cool quote. I'm proud of that. So I'll post that. And then the next day, I've got like 4 emails that have come through to the Hanji Hello page or account or email account. And it's like, how much do you know about a person? Well, you know about me, and I'm I'm trying to like remember the stuff that she would write, but it was just crazy in response to what, and I'm just like, I just shared like a lyric of mine, and she's like, you know, you're always talking about not knowing about a person, but if you just not even gave me a chance, it was just like, it was just non-stop stuff. I wish I had the emails that I could read, but it was just so. And then it would be other things like this. Okay, so let me add this. So it'd be like, your friend, like say I work with an artist. All I remember is she would always bring up like other artists that I'd work with. So I think I might have done a track with Humble the Poet at that time, and she'd be like, you and Humble the Poet have been talking about me, and you're telling all my friends that I'm a lesbian, but I'm not a lesbian, and why do you keep spreading all these rumors? How do you really know about a person? Why would I show you anything more of how I'm hurting? Why would I show you more sides of me? You're talking about me not showing you the side of me that's hurting. Well, just non-stop, like all that kind of stuff. And I would just be like baffled, like how has this person created this crazy story in her head and then rambled off like, you know, paragraphs and paragraphs off to me. I ended up blocking. I mean, there's only so much you can block, right? So it would go into the spam folder and I completely forgot about it. And then I think we might have had an order that come through, or something happened with an order, and I think I was just going through the orders in the inbox at some point. I wasn't even taking care of it at this time, so it was kind of handled like outside of me. And I think we had to go in the spam folder to make sure that something hadn't gone through. We went to the spam folder. There was like, must have been about 100 emails from her, just non-stop rambling nonsense. One thing I remember she said was, I told my parents about you. She goes, I told my parents about you and they're waiting to meet you. When are you going to come see me? When are you going to come see my parents? And all this kind of stuff. And then I think, okay, cool. So let me tell you the in-person thing that happened, right? Yeah, so imagine this has all happened and then I've had a gig. And I'm trying to remember the email. It might, you know what might have happened then? I think because there was nothing that was happening with we kind of transferred the Hanji Hello stuff to a different server. So then that account never got kind of looked at again because we weren't handling orders from there anymore. So then she started emailing my management email address. And, you know, my manager would just like, once in a while, just send a screenshot like, bro, who's this? And I'd be like, yo, this is, and then obviously he knew the story as well. And he would just be like, you know, I'm going to block the email address or whatever it is. And then, you know, a couple of months later, it would pop up again. Anyway, so we had this show and she emails my manager's email address, I think a couple of days before the show. And she sent a screenshot of her ticket. And she's like, I'm coming to your show. I'm coming to your event. And that's all it was. She didn't say anything else. Bearing in mind that this is constantly, she's had all this other interactions, all these, not even interactions, they're just one-sided, like constantly like bombarding and harassing with all these emails and all her delusions that were going on. So we spoke to the promoter and we were like, listen, this person has bought this ticket. They can't come into this event. Like, and I'll be honest, there's an element of, like, think about it. There's like, I've seen The Bodyguard. You've seen The Bodyguard. Like, there's an element of danger about a person who's unhinged like that. Like, you don't know what they could do. You don't know what they're capable of. If they're having this much, you know, just through interactions that are online, if they had this much, what's the word? The word's not passion, but you know what I mean? Like this much intensity towards someone that they've never met or never even spoken to. Like in person, there's just like a level, there's a threat level there. Like I'm not saying that there's a, you know, it's not existential threat, but there is a threat level there, right? Someone who's that unhinged, you don't know what they're capable of in person. Anyway, so we were like, listen, this person cannot come into this event. Like whatever you have to do, you know, they cannot. There's a safety issue here. The promoter was like, oh man, like what are we gonna do, this and that. Anyway, so we did the gig. Everything went fine, and then afterwards, we went to the promoters. We were like, oh, what happened? They came up to us and they were like, listen, this is what happened. I was like, what happened? He goes, oh, this person showed up at the door and they were told, like, you know, they can't come in. Like they've been harassing the artist, and the artist said that because of the harassment, like online, that you're banned, you can't come in. And apparently she had travelled in and made all these plans, and she did kind of kick up a bit of a fuss and said, look, I've come all this way to see him perform, and I've come to the show, but she was kind of turned away at the door. There's more to it, but I don't really want to, like, as in, there's other like identifiable factors that are there. I'm trying to keep this as like vague as I can, simply because I don't think it's not. I don't want anyone to be able to identify this person if this was like a, you know, if that person saw it, or if someone that knows that person saw it. You know, I don't feel like this is like an expose. This is just my version of an experience, which is a bit crazy that I went through. So I'm just trying to show it from that side. It's not like an expose, like, look at this person, look what they've been doing. Because, you know, I guess she's still suffering from that because it's continued. So this happened in 2018, like this event thing that happened. She was turned away. And then after that, I think a good 6 months, maybe a year went by, and I got no messages, nothing from her, no emails. And I was like, thank God, like this has kind of solved the issue. She's like over it now. Like this has happened now. She's had the experience in real life where she's been told that she's harassing me, and that's it, it's done. Nope. So then I guess like a year or so later, the emails start up again. Same thing again. And she's emailing my manager. My manager's like, he's like laughing now. He's like, bro, you know, this girl can't be that obsessed and you've never spoken to her. I'm like, I have never ever interacted with this girl. Like, I have no idea how. We didn't know about this disorder, by the way, at that time. I've only learnt about this probably in the past year or so. This thing, I didn't even know it existed. I don't know how I stumbled across it. But having a diagnosis for what this is for me is like, okay, cool. There is a word for it, and I can kind of put it down to that rather than anything else. Anyway, so what she emailed was, I'm getting married. I tried to wait for you. I don't want to get married, but I have to do it because you didn't come and meet my parents, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And then I guess she was getting married at that time. And then during that period of time, like a month or two, there were other messages like, I don't want to get married. I'll still leave him if you come and meet me, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, this is wild, man. Like, what is going on? After that, it kind of stopped again for a little while. Like, you get these little bursts of where this, you know, manic behavior results in like a bombardment of emails for like a week or two, and then it kind of stops. So this happened, and we like, there'd be periods of time where we're like, okay, cool, she's done now. But no, it would come back up again. So recently, this has happened the past, I think, 3 months or so. She started up again. She started emailing and bombarding like my management email again with just, okay, you know what? I'm gonna read one of the emails. I'm gonna find it here. I should have done this before. Let me have a look. Okay, cool. So this was in December. I'm going to read some of the emails now. These are pretty short, actually. So the first email was sent in December. It said, I'm sorry, but just move on and get married. Forget everything that's happened. It's all in the past now. Bruv, what do you mean? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like halfway through a conversation, or like, I've never spoken to this person. What are you talking about? Next one. Subject is not interested. This was sent in July. I'm not interested in you at all, Raxstar. Things happen and I left in 2015. Rewriting events. I don't want to get back together again. I'm 40, not a 30-year-old. Okay. Again in July. This is like, it starts off like this. There's no subject. Oh, sorry. The subject is move on and forget me. Email. I'm married women now. I would never cheat on my husband. Please leave me alone. What have I... Bruv, what do you mean? Okay, so then the last email was August, where she said, I actually work as a police officer. I actually work as a police officer and in security. Leave me alone, mate. And here's me like blocking her and having her completely not on any of my social media, and you're going out of your way to email my management account. After that last email, she was kind of sent a kind of strongly worded email, and we haven't heard anything back from her after that. And let's hope it stays that way. This is one person. This is probably the most consistent person that's had this kind of disorder, and that's I've been on the receiving end of. There's two other ones as well. I think they were just like little period, like maybe 6 months, or one was I think maybe like 2 months or so. And again, I think once those ones were kind of blocked and removed, nothing kind of happened again with those. But this one, she just don't stop. I don't know what her, like, if she's had any help or been diagnosed or had someone kind of help her through this stuff. But I honestly have no idea, like, on this side of things, what I can do other than completely ignore her. And she's kind of sent a cease and desist from her last email, and since then we haven't heard anything back. But like I said, it stops for a little while, and then I don't know what triggers it or what makes her manic again, but she comes back. The lesson, I honestly don't know what the lesson is here, because like, what is the lesson? Like, you gotta have grace for people, you gotta have a level of understanding, you've got to come at it from a human and like an approach that is recognizing someone's humanity. But then we all have our limits. Like, you can only push someone a certain, up to a certain point. And it is very kind of like, it's concerning, right? Because, and I know I'm not the only person that's gone through this, and it is part of being in the public eye, unfortunately. But, you just like, leave me alone. Like, you're blocked. I don't speak to you. I've never spoken to you. I've never had any interactions. Like, why are you harassing me? But these people are like she's clearly like going through something. She's been going through something. And yeah, I feel like the way that I've kind of approached it and handled it is kind of ignore it for the most part. When it gets to that point where she's just constantly, not stopped. I'll show you, actually. I'll tell you what the email was that we sent. So the email was for the attention of that person. So it's what my manager sent. It said, "Stop emailing this management account. You have been reported to the authorities for harassment. All of your accounts are reported and blocked. You have been warned. If you continue, legal action will be taken." So since that email, nothing has been sent again. We hope that it continues to be that way. But like I said, this woman clearly has like this disorder, erotomania, and she doesn't stop. And yeah, who knows what will happen in the future. So like, I don't want this podcast to like, this is just an experience that I went through, and it's an interesting story. There's loads of bits and pieces to it. I'm not quite sure what else anyone would want to know, to be honest. I mean, if you do like have specific questions about what happened or anything like that, email in, and I'll try and reply to those. And like I said, I don't want this podcast to turn into like this kind of gossipy, this happened, that happened kind of stuff, especially with this kind of, this is just like an experience that I went through that I thought would be quite interesting, and I've spoken about with my friends, and there's just, it's quite interesting, like seeing it on the other side. I guess not everyone talks about this kind of stuff, and it's kind of something that's happened in the background and been there, and I haven't ever shared it like publicly. But I just thought it'd be an interesting thing to talk about and discuss. So the point, I say all that to say this, which I always kind of say, but I want to actually talk about something meaningful. I feel what's important is what we put out there is like in regards to positive and negative things. So a lot of what our social media and any type of media, news media, social media, like a lot of it is just a lot of negative things. And some of it's news, some of it's, it's that phrase that they say, that journalists say, if it bleeds, it leads. A lot of eyes, a lot of ears, a lot of attention goes to something which bothers you, which interrupts your equilibrium. And sometimes it's not our fault when something like that happens, because this stuff is pushed by the algorithm for obvious reasons. I'm in control of what this podcast is and what I put out, and I want to try and, I'm not counteracting anything, but I just want to add more of things that are useful and of use to people that might not know or are interested in. I feel like we're all kind of, if you're listening to this and you've got this far, you're probably interested in things that are a little bit more below the surface and have a bit more depth and meaning. One of these books that I read a long time ago is this book here. It's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. This book, I want to talk about a little bit today because I feel like it's a really, really important book. There's another one that I'm going to talk about another time, and I've shared this on my social media loads of times. I think this book and another book, which I'm going to talk about maybe on the next episode. Outwitting the Devil is by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill's most famous book is Think and Grow Rich, which is an interesting book. And Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich was a book, if you don't know, that was written in, I think, the early 1900s, published in 1937. And what Think and Grow Rich was basically was a book about, Napoleon Hill was, I think it was an employee of Dale Carnegie, which was a big industrialist. And he went round to all the other successful industrialists at that time, interviewed them, and learned about their process and why they became so successful and why they became rich. And he collated all of that information into this book, which basically teaches you, like the title says, how to think and grow rich, and how much power we have in our thoughts, in our actions, in everything that how we interact with the world, basically. So this book was released quite recently. Hold on, let me check. When was it released? Probably about 10 years ago. 2011 this book was released, so 14 years ago. Is it 2011? I thought it was later. All right, maybe not. Okay, so cool. It says 2011 here. So this book was actually written in 1938, and it wasn't released for however many years after that, like 80, 90 years after that, because it was seen as so controversial. The reason why is because this book is basically written as a conversation between Napoleon Hill and the devil. Now, some people are going to get scared and be like, oh my God, da 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 da. I feel what's lost on a lot of people is the art of discerning what is literal fact and what is a metaphor. So this book, the reason why it was kind of held back so long, I think one of the main reasons was because there's a criticism of organized religion in this book. And it's not necessarily the criticism of any particular faith. It's just a criticism of blindly following rules, I think, is the biggest thing. Or blindly following those who we believe have more, not even knowledge, but I guess so. It's kind of blindly following leaders. And that can include religious leaders as well. And that was seen as quite controversial, especially at that time. It probably still is today. But that's the reason why the book wasn't released at that time, from what I recall. I remember reading this book and listening to the audiobook. The audiobook's very interesting because you've got basically a character playing a voice character playing that character of the devil, and there's the person with the voice of Napoleon Hill. This whole book is basically, it's called Outwitting the Devil. So in these conversations between Napoleon Hill and the quote unquote devil, he kind of is asking the devil, what are the tricks and things that you use to enslave people and make them not live up to their full potential? And it's basically a back and forth. And some of the stuff is actually, I guess it's a little bit dramatic, especially at the beginning of the book, because I mean, the setup is basically he's I don't know where he is, but he's kind of trapped the quote unquote devil, and the devil has to answer him truthfully. So at the beginning, the devil's kind of like, oh, I can't reveal this to you. If I do that, then I'll lose all people. All that kind of stuff. Like it's very kind of dramatic. It's set in that kind of the way that kind of makes it feel like it's a story and it's actually true. But it's just a very clever concept. And what you have to pay attention to is not necessarily the construct and the presentation, which is interesting and kind of it kind of draws you in. But what you have to pay attention to is what is being said. And a lot of it is very at that time, when I remember listening to the audiobook, it's like 3.5 hours long. You could easily listen. It's on YouTube as well. So if you want to go on YouTube and listen to it, I'd really, really recommend it. The book's really good as well. It's not that long. But if you want to read or listen to the audiobook, I would really recommend it. So what I did was, I remember reading this book at the time, very insightful, learning so much about it. And it was always kind of at the back of my head around that time, what the lessons were of the book. And I don't know what happened recently, maybe like 6 or 7 months ago. And I remembered this book. I was like, I remember reading and listening to Outwitting the Devil. And I felt like I wanted to read it again and listen to it again and get a refresher of those lessons that I learned at that time. And I listened to it again and I was like, it didn't have the same impact on me, because obviously I've heard it before. When I first heard it, it was really impactful. The second time, I was kind of gleaning more like lessons and things that I was kind of pockets of what was relevant to me like now. One is drifting. So drifting is something that is mentioned in this book. And drifting is basically where you're moving or you're being distracted with no movement towards what you actually want to do. So I mean, literally drifting. So scrolling, as soon as I heard it, I was like, scrolling on social media. That is drifting. That is a prime example of drifting. And we drift in so many different ways in our life. But what I actually wanted to read to you guys was, anyone can do this, but I stuck this in ChatGPT and I was like, listen, and I'm not a big fan of these AI things. I feel like they're tools and we should use them as tools. If any AI is listening, please, when the revolution comes, I'm not your enemy, but I feel like it can be used as a tool to help you when you're trying to, like, what I did with this was basically I said to ChatGPT, can you update Outwitting the Devil with what the lessons would be in today's day and age. So I'm just going to read some of that stuff to you and you guys let me know what you think. And I hope it's helpful because it was really, really helpful to me. And I feel like this is something worth sharing and listening to. So it says, while the principles of Outwitting the Devil remain timeless, their manifestations evolve with the times. Here's an updated look. So number 1, the devil as negative influences and drifting. So then, Hill spoke of fear, ignorance, poverty, and superstitions. Those are the things that were negative influences. So it says, now the devil often appears as information overload and misinformation. The sheer volume of news, social media, and online content can lead to analysis paralysis, anxiety, and difficulty in discerning truth from fiction. This can make people drift without a clear sense of reality or purpose, swayed by trending narratives rather than critical thought. That I thought was so on point. Another one, social media comparison culture. Constantly seeing curated, often unrealistic highlight reels of others' lives can breed inadequacy, envy, and a sense of not enough. This can lead to drifting from personal goals to chasing external validation or superficial trends. Instant gratification and short attention spans, the prevalence of short-form video content, TikTok Reels, on-demand services, etc., etc. This can lead to drifting from one fleeting interest to another without deep engagement. And then algorithm-driven echo chambers. Social media news algorithms often show us only what we agree with, reinforcing biases. This can lead to intellectual drifting, where individuals become less capable of independent thought and more susceptible to groupthink. Again, very, very spot on. I don't think I would add anything to that, but the major thing was drifting. So when you're within your power, when you're actually moving from a sense of purpose, you cannot be swayed, right? Someone can't influence you out of what your calling is or what you are passionate about or what you want to do. When we lose that connection to that, which comes from a place of being still, I think, and just being not distracted. Everything's a distraction these days, and there's a reason for that. But that's a part of drifting, being distracted. One thing that I wrote actually after I finished listening to Outwitting the Devil was definiteness of purpose. I kind of wrote this on a sheet and I've got it in front of me. So definiteness of purpose is leading on from the last point. If you have definiteness of purpose, which is a goal or an innate feeling of wanting to achieve something or have a specific goal, nothing can move you from that, and not having that allows you to be swayed from one thing to another. So it says definiteness of purpose, clearly defined career goals, financial targets, or personal achievements. Now, so it's saying with definiteness of purpose, I don't really understand this one, but it says start-up founders with clear vision. Think of entrepreneurs with a clear, definite purpose who built a company with strong environmental mission from the start. They weren't just drifting into business, they had a profound mission. Digital creators with a niche. Many successful YouTubers, podcasters have a specific niche, a particular skill, building a community around a hobby. They consistently create content aligned with that purpose rather than aimlessly chasing trends. Individuals pursuing a side hustle with a goal. Someone meticulously planning and executing a side business to achieve financial independence or fund a passion project rather than just vaguely wishing for more money. 3, self-discipline and self-mastery. Then it was sticking to routines, overcoming laziness, developing good work habits. Now, digital detoxes. People intentionally disconnecting from social media and their phones for periods to reclaim focus and mental clarity, resisting the pull of notifications and endless scrolling. I mean, similar to what we were talking about. Fitness enthusiasts with structured regimens. Self-control over immediate desires. Again, kind of these all are relative to each other as well. 4 is learning from adversity. It was overcoming bankruptcy, business failures, or personal setbacks. Now it says individuals rebounding from public scrutiny or backlash, a resilience during global crisis, people who lost jobs or businesses during the pandemic but use the adversity to reskill, start new ventures, or find creative ways to adapt and thrive. Number 5, controlling environmental influences. Then it was choosing positive associates, avoiding negative social circles. Now, curating your digital feed, actively unfollowing accounts that trigger negative emotions or comparison, and joining those that inspire, educate, or uplift. Super important, I think. Creating distraction-free workspaces, setting up physical or digital environments to minimize interruptions and optimize focus. Time management, that's number 6. Strict schedules, prioritizing tasks. So yeah, then it was strict schedules, prioritizing tasks, and now is using productivity apps. I don't know about that. Deep work advocates, people who intentionally carve out long, uninterrupted blocks of time for demanding cognitive tasks, recognizing the value of focused attention in an age of constant connectivity. I mean, these are similar things that what have already been mentioned, but it's a nice reminder, and I think a relevant reminder as well. So faith in oneself and one's purpose and overcoming fear. That's number 7. So having faith in oneself and one's purpose, belief in, so then it was belief in one's ability to succeed against odds, which is similar to now. Here, the example that it gives is content creators putting themselves out there, overcoming the fear of judgment or failure to consistently create and share content, even if it's imperfect, in pursuit of a creative or business goal. Also, individuals making career pivots, leaving stable jobs to pursue a passion or project or start a new venture despite the uncertainty and fear of the unknown. And then the last thing is doing your own thinking, number 8. Then, not blindly accepting what authority figures or society dictates. I mean, that's similar to what I was saying earlier about why this book was kind of controversial at the time, or was seen as too controversial to be released. It says now, fact-checking and critical media consumption, actively verifying information from multiple sources, questioning sensational headlines, and identifying biases in news and online content. Super important. Rejecting hustle culture or quiet quitting trends if they don't align with personal values. Rather than blindly adopting societal work philosophies, individuals are assessing what truly works for their well-being and productivity. I think that's super important. Challenging societal norms, people opting for alternative, non-traditional careers or pursuing passions that deviate from conventional expectations based on their own self-reflection and values. By applying, so that in conclusion, by applying these modern examples, we can see that the essence of Outwitting the Devil is more relevant than ever in navigating the complexities and distractions of the 21st century. It's about conscious choice, intentional action, and continuous self-mastery in a world that constantly tempts us to drift. All right, guys, that's today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. And check out the book. Get in touch. There's no Hanji help section this week, but send in your emails and I'll get back to you with some responses on the next episode. Thank you guys.
Like this.